Okay, welcome to week 11 of Whiteboard Wednesday. Going to be a little bit of a change of pace today. I'm moving from that the high performance with high integrity part of our strategy, which I think we've covered in a fair bit of detail. And the reason for that is it is just so fundamental to what we're actually trying to do, that whilst we're very much, as I've said before, a performance-based organisation, we want to do it with an integrity, and the integrity is all about the heritage, where we've come from, the values, the community, those sorts of things, which are very, very important. To give those things emphasis and to take us to the next level, which we basically call the richness of our relationships, and I'll go through the components in a moment. Why that high performance with high integrity aspect of it is very important is it gives this area its direction, its own storyline, and part of what we're actually trying to do when we build on this notion of relationships is give something which is really believable and authentic in regard to our club, and there can be nothing more authentic at the Melbourne Football Club than 152 years of heritage, or great values stemming from a Jim Steins and those types of things, and that sense of community, and we experienced that even in the last few days when we visited Uendamu, Darwin and Snake Bay and the Tiwi Islands to see where our lads come from. But the notion of the richness of our relationships is phase 2, and again it's taken from our red and blueprint, and working off this particular framework, which is this important one, which is the strategic staircase. We had the high performance, high integrity, working now on the richness of the relationships and the three components which are there within it all. So the three of those, and I'm going to talk about one in particular today, but the first one is simply what we call the strategic relationships. And these are basically relationships whereby there is a very, very strong emphasis on the strategic benefit to both parties which form part of those relationships. In the main, for us, it's been the MCC, and obviously we've realigned with them, the AFL, and we're really starting to build up strong levels of respect in regard to what they're about. But also increasingly things like government, local, federal, state. I've done a 30-year deal at the City of Casey, doing a lot of work with the City of Melbourne, with the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, the work that we've done recently with the Northern Territory Government in regard to playing games there. That's becoming a really big area, and we're actually going to put some more resources into that area. But we're in a good space with those. But the notion of relationships, as it differs from, say, a customer, is this notion of mutuality and reciprocity. They've got to get something very strongly back from it all. The next one is the customer, who, and that can come in any shape or form, and we really look at our customer very much on the style of relationship they're looking, a bit different to the strategic relationships, but the style of relationship and how they want to feel about the club. We have people who have a relationship with the club as a customer, and it's a very rational relationship. For example, our major sponsors, Kaspersky is an example, launched their brand into Australia based on what they wanted to do in terms of getting a rational response from their investment in it all, through to almost the irrational and the passionate, if you like, where we, the amount of people who fly up to Darwin on the weekend, obviously for the experience of going up, because they have this passionate involvement with the club, and they'll do things at a lifestyle level which is often beyond the norm, but something we genuinely encourage. But the one I'm going to focus on a little bit, which forms part of this today, is brand. And brand being something which is, brand strategy has been a very talked about thing for the last 10 to 15 years, and comes to the core of this notion. And it's obviously a double play on the word, on the double play on the word richness. We want people to have a very rich association, but it's really, within all of this, is the heart of where we gain our wealth as a football club to establish the profit model, which then enables us to reinvest in our football club. The component I'm going to focus mostly on as part of these three, and I'll come to the other two in future Whiteboard Wednesdays, is this notion of branding. And brand is something which, as a club, we don't push out or talk about our club as a brand often. We are a football club, and that's critical to understand the difference. But we have brand imperatives. And the core component that we look to build on in regard to that brand imperative is this first phase, again, of building this narrative or a storyline. And the narrative is critical because people in and around the club may find themselves as part of the selling of the story or the creating of the story at all sorts of levels, whether it's the receptionist answering the phone through to Dean Bailey, who does his 1 or 2 or 3 press conferences a week, or James McDonald, or a young player. So how they communicate on the storyline becomes very important. And critical to that is its consistency, and again, it's got to have a realness and an authenticity about it. But it not only does it give you clues as to how we communicate, but it also can give you very strong clues as to how we behave. And so I expect, as an example, in our communications, to be anything but defensive. I can understand people put in front of cameras at different stages and put under a lot of pressure at different times and forced to almost roll with whatever the angle that the media are actually pushing with them. But if they're ever defensive about their position, that's the area that I actually then try to educate guys with. We've got no reason to be defensive as a football club. We're in a great place where we've got this terrific heritage, where we've got this fantastic optimism and positivity about our future, both on and off the field. So we can always reference back to those things regardless of what situation you're in. From time to time we have to manage difficult issues, but let's isolate the issue rather than necessarily breaking away from the narrative. So the building of the narrative, which is real and obvious, and again comes right back to the core of what the strategy is about, I think is the most fundamental aspect of branding.